Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Looks like we've got a few people just rolling in, so we're going to give them another minute or so to dial in as the numbers keep climbing here. While we're waiting for that, let's hear where everybody's dialing in from today. I know I'm usually in Toronto, Canada, but today I happen to be in Scottsdale, and it's much sunnier here. Justin, how about you? Where are you today?
I am calling in from San Francisco, where it has been sunny all weekend and took a turn for the gray today, but I'm enjoying it.
Looks like we've got quite a few. We've got David from Montreal. We've got Francis from Baltimore, Minneapolis, Harrisburg, John from Kitchener, cold and snowy. John, I feel ya. I've been to Kitchener. It's cold and snowy this time of year. Oh, man. Joanna from Boston. Toronto. Oh, that's Victoria from my team. So yes, she's in Toronto. Orange County. Awesome. We got a good mix of people here today, Justin.
Yeah, it's an international crowd, if you will.
I know. Let's see here. Who else do we have? Cambridge, UK. Excellent. Definitely getting international. A little more Canada representation from Vancouver.
Hamburg,
Arizona.
Germany.
Oh, nice. Germany. Brett, I am down the road from you for about another day, and then I'm on the red eye back to Toronto. Leesburg, San Francisco. This is great. I love this. I love hearing where people are from. I'm not really sure why, but it gets me pumped up for the webinar. All right, I think we're good to go. Oh, Belgium! I had to sneak that one in. I think we're good to go. Most people are logged in, and it sounds like they're ready. So, welcome to today's webinar, everyone. We're going to be talking about a new metric to demonstrate event ROI. I am super excited about this because events has really been going through kind of this renaissance, and I feel like not only, us at Uberflip included, but not only are a lot of us at marketers sponsoring more events, but I feel like everybody and their mother is hosting their own event. There's just so much of that stuff happening that's more in real life, which I think is really great. So today I have with me Justin Gonzalez, who is the Senior Marketing Manager at DoubleDutch and in charge of all things content there. Hi, Justin.
Hello, Hannah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Now, before I kick things over to Justin, who's prepared a really awesome presentation for you guys, a little bit of housekeeping as usual. So just a few quick things. Number one, we will send the recording. We always get questions around that, so never fear. You will find it in your inbox in the next day or two. And we'll also send you the slides. So if you want to look back at anything that Justin has mentioned today during the webinar, you can actually scroll through the slides. And we will definitely be taking questions. So if you do have any questions, plunk them into the chat box on the left-hand side. I'll be flagging them as Justin is speaking, and we'll be either grabbing some of them during the presentation or definitely circling back to all of them at the end of the presentation. So make sure you type them in so that you don't forget what they are. And then, of course, make sure you shout out the webinar on Twitter. We'll be using #UberWebinar today. And since we are sending you the recording and we are sending you the slides, don't worry about taking notes. So you can sit back, relax, tweet your little hearts out. Using #UberWebinar, you can mention us at Uberflip, at DoubleDutch. I know we'll have a few people online tweeting about the webinar as well. And if you hear any major knowledge bombs that Justin drops, or if you see any slides that are worth sharing, grab that screenshot and tweet it out. Last but not least, we also will be doing a quick Uberflip demo at the end of the webinar. So we'll go through this, we'll go through questions, and then if you're curious about Uberflip and how it can help you not only with your content marketing, but there's a really great event use case for Uberflip as well. Stick around and I'll kind of give you guys a quick look about what we do at Uberflip and how we can help you with content on a larger scale. And without further ado, Justin, I'm going to kick things off to you so you can get started with some of the great content you put together for people.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. I'm really excited to be here to chat with you all today. I have a few key areas that I'm going to focus on for today's presentation. Of course, the first area I really want to touch on is the rise of the event marketer and sort of this renaissance period, if you will, as Hannah described it, that the event teams and event professionals are really going through. Of course, I'm going to get straight into the meat of our presentation, which is all around how to set engagement goals to demonstrate ROI for your events. And of course, we're going to end it with some tips and tricks to teach you how to leverage your data wisely. Before I jump into any of those things, I do want to take a step back and talk a little bit about what brought us here today. And Hannah, if we can go to the next slide.
Yep, absolutely. And Justin, you should be able to control the slides as well. So just a heads up there, but let me know if you have any issues and I'll help you.
Yeah, it looks like, okay. We'll try to work through it. But so
okay.
to take a step back, and kind of introduce sort of why I'm here today, evangelizing the role of the event marketer. I've been with DoubleDutch for a few years now, and we really focus on events. That's our platform, that's our product, that's really what we specialize in. And in my time at DoubleDutch, I've spoken to tons and tons of event professionals from all over the world about what they do and sort of what their purpose is or their role. And what I really started to learn over the past few years and having these conversations is that the role of an event professional is really that of a well-rounded marketer. And the premise of that really comes from events are used as demand generation, they're used as a PR tool, they're used, of course, as a brand and experience. So really when you start to look at the role of events in your marketing strategy, they touch every channel within the marketing organization. And so in having these conversations with people, I started to notice a trend in which there was this ceiling that they all kept talking about, which is, you can become the director of corporate events, or I can lead an events team. And so I took a step back and I went back to my marketing team and I was like, why can't the event marketer become a CMO? Why can't an event professional have, with all of this well-roundedness, have the ability to really move into the C-suite? And so at DoubleDutch, we recently launched Rise of the Event Marketer, which is a white paper where we interviewed 6 industry thought leaders, again, from around the world. You're going to see some of their thoughts peppered throughout my presentation today. But really the goal of this piece is to position event professionals to think like marketers, but with the intention of, helping them elevate themselves, elevate their role within the larger marketing organization. And on the next slide, you'll see that the premise there and what we've learned is that the marketing landscape is completely evolving. And it's no longer enough for us to really track these short-term goals, right? Like lead generation or velocity, which are, people filling out forms and sort of taking actions with our brand. It's really becoming essential for marketers to focus on how to build those lasting relationships with their prospects and customers alike. And really what it boils down to is the key question we need to be able to answer as marketers is, are our leads and prospects, are our customers truly engaged with our brand? And more importantly, will they remain loyal to us in the face of constant competition for attention? And really that boils down to everyone is jumping into the content game. There's tons and tons of content out there that we're competing for attention with. Of course, you have social networks and all of these different tools and technologies that marketers are taking advantage of. So the question is, will our leads and prospects remain loyal to our brand in the long run? And I love this quote from Kevin Jackson, who's the Director of Ideas and Innovation at the Experiences of Marketing. Those of you who might be joining in from Europe are likely familiar with Kevin. He's a phenomenal person. And Kevin said in my interview with him that marketing used to be about what you said to people, but now it's about what you do for people. You have to come into the business to add value to the lives of your customers and clients. And really the essence of what Kevin is saying here is that the marketing brands that are doing this and the people that can do this for the marketing organization are the ones that are going to really move forward. And events are really the prime space where we see that happening on a massive scale. And so, of course, we know that we see tons of new marketing technologies that have made it incredibly simple to reach out to prospects before, during, and after events, but more importantly through all of these different channels to ultimately track engagement. And we can do that for every type of marketing channel, right? So we can track email open rates and click-through rates to online online advertising impressions and conversions, and of course everything in between. At DoubleDutch, we're huge users of Uberflip, so we're constantly tracking engagement with our content and what those metrics look like as well. But when we think of the digital marketing component, it's really this one-directional engagement piece, and there are lots of tools and technologies that are transforming the way we think about that. But really, the power of events is that they are a key way for us to supercharge a dialogue with our lead prospects and customers, because there's incredible value in the face-to-face meeting. We know this as a fact that face-to-face meetings accelerate deals, accelerate relationships in incredible ways. And so we truly believe in the power of digital marketing, but what we're trying to do at DoubleDutch is really supercharge those face-to-face connections and supercharge that live engagement component. And so really that brings us to the age of engagement marketing. And the fact is that engagement really matters, right? So successful businesses are founded on this principle of having happy customers and a satisfied install base. And frankly, without that, you have no business. You're kind of just an idea. And I don't think that anyone would disagree with me in that. But the value of engagement is really in its unparalleled ability to create these deep and lasting engagements with our customer and install base that ultimately provide like this massive value for the end user, for our customers. And when we change our mentality as marketers to really focus on engagement, there's this incredible thing that happens. And another thing that came out of my interview with Kevin Jackson is, and I love the way that he explains this because it's quite simple, but he says the only way to get those relationships is in a real situation, right? So that face-to-face meeting. And really that comes down to the same way that we interact with people in our normal personal lives. And anything other than that, right, like all of these other digital components, which are really fantastic and evolving in their own right to focus on engagement, but really it's just like having a pen pal or a Facebook friend. You can like and comment with them and you can sort of interact on some level, but there's no real face-to-face connection that's being made there. And so I think as a marketer myself, I feel like we're in this incredible moment where we're moving beyond this one-directional component, and we're really focusing on the engagement piece to our marketing channels. And again, there are tons of companies talking about engagement marketing. We're not the only ones. I know Uberflip is focused on content engagement. Marketo is reapproaching engagement from a marketing automation standpoint. And there are tons and tons of tools and technologies that are sort of popping up and hopping on board this engagement marketing trend. I don't know if, Hannah, you have anything to add there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting you're talking about this. I remember reading an interview of Seth Godin actually late last year. I believe it was on the Marketo blog. And he was talking about the same thing. He says, it's going to be all around engagement. And one of the things that he was asked is, well, how is this going to change things? And his response was, it's not necessarily going to change things, but we're going to be doing more of the stuff that builds that engagement. So more events, more content, more things that create dialogue. So I think it's really interesting. I think this is definitely the direction that we're all headed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And really that kind of brings me to where I stand and why I love working at DoubleDutch. But when I think of live events, I really think that they are the perfect storm of engagement marketing. And when we think of effective engagement marketing, it really requires this constant connection with our leads and prospects. And frankly, there's no better way to achieve that connection than by hosting really killer events. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that audiences at events really engage with our brand both online and offline at the same time. And this happens through candid dialogue where they're attending sessions and participating in panels. Of course, they're connecting on social media. They're engaging with your content across the web. And really the way that we look at it here at DoubleDutch is that when you sort of bridge that connection between the online and the offline worlds, right? So leveraging mobile event technology, those face-to-face and the digital connections really align in this beautiful moment to give you the power to connect with your leads and prospects on an incredible level at the same time. And so what we're really focused on here at DoubleDutch is that for event professionals, for events teams, to really rise to the top of the marketing organization, it's essential for them to be able to measure event engagement so that they can paint a clear picture for their leadership team that can demonstrate exactly how well the event performed from start to finish, but more importantly, that they can really speak like an educated marketer can, like your digital marketing teams, if you will. But frankly, we face a few challenges on the event side, and that's because once a leader prospect crosses through those conference room doors, it's really difficult historically for us to measure that level of engagement, right? Like, we can track the fact that this person registered for the event and that they attended the event, and there are lots of disparate tools out there that can track session attendance and what have you. But historically, event marketers and event professionals haven't had the resources. They haven't had the Google Analytics for events. And what we're trying to do here at DoubleDutch is really create that Google Analytics for events moment or platform that empowers event marketers to speak in the same language as their digital counterparts. And so that is what we are here to talk about today. So I did a lot of prefacing and stage building. I will get right into the meat of the presentation. Before I jump in, Hannah, I don't know if you have anything to add or if any questions came up through that, but happy to pause for a moment if people do have questions.
Yeah, and remember, guys, if you have questions, plunk them into the chat box. One comment, I guess more so than a question from John, is that your slides are beautiful, Justin.
Thank you, John.
So I thought I would share that with you. No, it's so true. Much. Oftentimes the slides are just so packed with all this extra stuff and they become distracting. I think this is great. But I do think in general what you're talking about is so true. I mean, I even look at it on the events side in terms of what we're doing at Uberflip. And, we have that dedicated events person. And she really does need, and like anyone that works with her sort of on the team's events, she really needs that broad knowledge of marketing in general. One thing I think you'll find interesting, I was on a panel a couple of days ago with somebody from Shopify that actually essentially does events for Shopify, but her title is head of IRL marketing, in real life marketing. And I love that because it doesn't pigeonhole her into just events, right? It's like in real life, like interaction, engagement. So I thought you'd appreciate that one.
I do love the title. I love quirky titles like that, which I think is a really great way and a great segue for the next sort of section, which is really all about how do we set these engagement goals and ultimately demonstrate ROI for our events. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Again, if you guys have questions as I'm running through this, please feel free to chat them to us, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. I love this quote from our own event marketing manager, Lindsay Lyle. She says that people still want that in-person connection, and event programs really offer the face-to-face engagement that helps smooth your leads down the funnel at a higher conversion rate than most other marketing channels. And when we sort of dissect that, we know that events are full of these unique opportunities to engage with individuals. Again, we're looking at the face-to-face engagement plus the digital component, where we're talking about things like in-app messaging to real-time social media, and of course, the traditional networking that happens, the business card exchange, all of that stuff. And so when we're able to really take full advantage of that opportunity to build these connections with our leads, prospects, and customers, it becomes important for us to really set measurable goals and to track the right metrics to watch our event success unfold and, of course, prevent our events from becoming a marketing flop, if you will. And so the first recommendation that we have, of course, is to set those expectations early on in the process. Michael Powers, formerly of Marketo, now of SnapApp, he really talked a lot about the importance of choosing what metrics you'll measure, sitting down with each event stakeholder to reach a consensus on those objectives, and of course, plan your data collection accordingly. Every event type is going to have different goals. It's going to have different metrics. It's going to have a different reason for happening. And so it's important that you take a step back and say, why are we having this event, and what can we measure? What should we measure that is ultimately going to help us demonstrate that success? And so it really comes down to assigning responsibilities and expectations. And the importance of that is that from the start, each marketer, organizer, event specialist will have a clear picture of what they're responsible for and their goal as an individual, but more importantly as a team. And really what that helps to do is ensure accountability at every stage of the planning process, so that you're scheduled and you're on time and you're avoiding any snags, and of course so that you can plan accordingly in the future. So
I love that. I love that. Sorry, Justin, I'm just going to interject for a second. So it's funny, Michael Powers, who you mentioned, is actually here, and we actually had a really great conversation with him for our podcast, which is launching soon. Quick plug, head over to uberflip.com/podcast, about how to squeeze that in there, about everything to do with events marketing. And I think this point in particular is so important, especially if you're just starting to get into events and your C-suite or your bosses don't really know what to expect. The expectations is so critical. And I mean, that's something we definitely learned at Uberflip.
Yeah, it just becomes crucial, right? Because if you're hosting a sales kickoff, the goals of your sales kickoff or your internal training meeting is going to be completely different from your user conference or your customer install-based campaign. All of these things have different metrics and goals, and so it's important that you first take a step back and determine, like, is hosting this event all about generating revenue for our business? Is it all about net new leads? You know, just really taking a step back and saying, why are we doing this as a group before going into the actual metrics?
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into some metrics, and there will be a lot on this slide, but I'm going to speak to each point as clearly and thoroughly as I can. Of course, the first thing that we really look at DoubleDutch are metrics around attendee engagement, and this is really where we're looking at these leads and prospects, right? And so there are a number of different things that we want to measure. Of course, we want to measure the qualitative metrics like the smile on an attendee's face, but really it's important for event teams to think like true marketers. And you're going to hear me say that a lot today, and I'm going to ask for your forgiveness early on, but the goal is really for us to stop thinking like, you know, event people and to really start thinking like a marketer and to get that terminology, to get those ideas in our vernacular. So it's really important that we not only look at the qualitative metrics, but that we're also looking at that quantitative data to ultimately demonstrate how well you're contributing to the goals of your event. And so there are a few things that we look at here at DoubleDutch. The first is on the sales pipeline. To think that we can do to really measure success from a lead generation standpoint, from an attendee standpoint, would be to look at things like event registrations, email signups, attendee referrals, and really what these help us do is to get a sense for which new prospects may ultimately turn into customers or which accounts may sign a larger contract down the road. Of course, we also want to track things that indicate an individual is further down the sales cycle. That can include things like meeting requests, any product demos that they might have. Of course, if they're actually signing contracts on the show floor, these metrics and these things become really, really important for us. And I'm going to get to this a little bit later when we really talk about the tools to track success. But of course, you want to make sure that you're able to sync all of that data into your marketing automation system, into your customer relationship management tool, whatever you might be using. You want to make sure all of those things are syncing back, and we'll touch on that in a moment. Of course, there are other metrics that are a little bit looser, more on the PR and brand building side. And so it's important for us to really start calculating our event's influence on brand recognition and growth by looking at mentions such as social media mentions. Of course, traditional media mentions become important. We also want to look at the increase in number of followers on social media during the time of the event. So did we see a spike, in the few days that our event lasted? Anything that we can really attribute to that particular event. At DoubleDutch, we're constantly looking at the level of influence that our attendees have. So how influential are they in the event and marketing space, and can we capitalize on getting more of those people through the doors in the future? And then, of course, any trends in website traffic. So again, if you're launching a product, if you're launching a new service at your event, and that's the purpose of the event, you want to be able to track any of the website visits or views that your event might be driving to that particular product page, or if it's a landing page, what have you. Of course, on the attendee engagement side, we really want to start looking at who's committed to our brand by tracking the return attendees from prior events, the frequency and sentiment of communication about the event. So are they posting in the application? Are they posting on social media? Is really great. We want to make sure that they're making those actions and making that activity happen, But we also want to look at how frequently are each of these people posting in our applications or posting on social media. And what can we draw from that? If someone is posting in our events application a ton, can we, interpret that to mean that this deal will likely close or that this customer can become an advocate for us down the road? Of course, we also want to look at the sentiment of that communication. So one of my favorite features that we have here at DoubleDutch is the attendee sentiment meter, where we're able to actually see, leveraging natural language processing in your events application, how happy are attendees at your event? And if they aren't happy, more importantly, what can you do to actually impact their experience in the moment rather than after the fact? So of course, the attendee sentiment becomes important on top of the frequency and the level of communication per attendee. And all of this stuff should be available to you through Event Performance Dashboard. And I see a lot of questions coming through, so I do want to pause and see if we can get to any before I jump to metrics for our sponsors.
Yeah, there's a ton of questions starting to come through. So I think let's maybe knock off the first couple. So Elena is asking, does this work with fundraising events? Is there a difference, or is an event and you can really apply a lot of these principles across the board?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And ultimately, I think, as I said before jumping in, I think every event is unique. And we certainly should not treat any event as being the same as another. We can draw information from what other people are doing. At DoubleDutch, we do that all the time. And I think it becomes important that you sort of look at, what are the metrics for a user conference and how are they sort of determining success, and can I do the same thing? For a fundraising event, obviously the goal of your event is to raise money for your organization. So at the end of the day, that's likely going to be the end goal for you, right? So you're going to be measured on how much money you were able to raise at this particular event. But other things that we can, of course, look at would be how engaged were the people. Let me take a step back, actually. Were the people who donated the most money also the most engaged in our particular event? And if we know that to be true, what can we do down the road to engage the people who maybe sort of took a back seat at the event and didn't really participate? What can we do to turn those people into brand advocates to get them excited to donate more money down the road?
Okay, that's a good point. So Sophia actually has a question around your social media person, and is it important to have them there on site, or can you get away with monitoring an event remotely? Just because, I would imagine that there's sort of an intangible benefit to kind of having them be there for the IRL experience, as she puts it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I completely agree. It's something that I struggle with a lot here at DoubleDutch. I'm the one that manages our social media account. And when we're sponsoring a number of events and hosting a number of events, I, of course, wish that I could be at every single one. But that would be somewhat impossible unless I could clone myself. I think, there is this invaluable, intangible value, if you will, in having your social media team or person on site. I think, there's nothing that can compare to live tweeting an event, to live tweeting an experience. And I think that's a difficult thing, I think, to get people's buy-in from a leadership perspective, but if you're able to look back and say, okay, well, this is what our social media person was able to do remotely, and these are the expanded impressions that we generated, and this is the website traffic that we generated, and the level of engagement we generated. Imagine what this person can do if they were on site, taking pictures of the speakers, taking pictures of attendees, actually engaging directly with attendees. There's incredible power, I think, in having that person on site and ready to rumble. So, it's going to come down to your business goals. But yeah, it's something we struggle with at DoubleDutch as well. Yeah,
on site and ready to rumble. That sounds exciting. For the social media person, I want to be there. Okay, let's grab one more question, and then maybe we can kind of keep going through this and circle back to some of the other ones that are coming in towards the end. Sure. So Tammy wants to know, are you going to use the same metrics for events that your company attends and sponsors versus the metrics that you should be looking at if you're actually running an event? So like obviously those are going to be a little bit different, but if you're just attending versus sponsoring versus running your event, what are some of the key things that you want to be looking for?
So I think, having someone from your team attending an event, the goal there is likely going to be education and sort of information retention. So what is this person learning at the event? That's kind of a difficult thing to measure unless you expect the person to come back and deliver a post-event report or presentation, which we often do here at DoubleDutch. Totally recommend it. But also, from an exhibitor side, from a sponsorship standpoint, more than likely, I'm going to assume that the goal there is around lead generation, so actually getting net new leads for your database and for your marketing initiatives. When we look at it at DoubleDutch, typically our sponsorship events have about an 80-20, I'm losing the word as it's coming out of my mouth.
Conversion?
An 80-20 split, excuse me, where 80% of the goal is generating net new leads, and about 20% is really around engaging existing customers or prospects. So if we're exhibiting an event, the expectation is, of course, we want to make sure we're generating new names for our database, new people for our sales reps to go after. But of course, we also know that the people we're currently talking to on the sales side will likely be at this event in some way, shape, or form. So let's try and schedule meetings with them. And then, of course, if our customers are there, let's take them out to dinner. Let's turn them into evangelists and advocates for our brand. On the hosted event side, really, it's more than likely about database marketing or account-based marketing. So how are you driving people faster down your funnel? We know that events are this incredible conversion point where the face-to-face connection is just, supercharged and lit up. So we really look at the lead velocity, if you will. So how quickly are we moving people down our funnel through these hosted events? So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, that's great. I think it does. I'm excited to kind of look at the event from sort of the sponsor perspective, or the metrics rather from the sponsor perspective. I think that's where you're going next, yeah?
Yeah, let's jump into that. So again, lots of information here, and no two events are the same. These are just ideas on things that you should or can be measuring for your sponsors. And again, this is really approaching it from the perspective of you're hosting an event and you have sponsors at your event. And so really, if that is the case for you, sponsors are often the lifeblood of many events, and it's really essential that we ensure that we're keeping tabs on how well they're meeting their own goals. So again, if you're hosting an expo or a trade show, even a user conference where you have sponsors or your partners are sponsoring the event, it's really, really important that we're making sure that they're seeing a return on their own investment as well. And so some things that we want to keep in mind are around their sales pipeline and their ability to build their brand at your event. And so when we look at the sales pipeline, of course, we want to track booth traffic and meeting requests. So these are all things that we can measure, again, through your application. We also want to see through the meetings that are coming through, are any demos happening? Are they being scheduled? Are they happening on the show floor? Of course, we want to go and actually speak directly with our exhibitors and sponsors and learn about the quality of those contacts. Are they generating sales on the floor? And ultimately, are they meeting the right people at the right time and going to see value from this event? And at DoubleDutch, when we look at people who sponsor events or people who are sponsoring our events, these are really our partners. So it's important for us from a marketing perspective to keep these people happy, because not only are they helping to contribute to our particular event, but we're really working in tandem. And so they're not just there to give us a paycheck at the end of the day. We're there to help each other co-market and coexist. So the ROI becomes really, really important. On the brand side, of course, we also want to look to see that our partners, again, we're considering them partners. We want to make sure that they're doing their part to make sure our event is also a success. So are they doing any traditional media or social media outreach? What is the overall attendee sentiment of our sponsors and partners? Do they like these people? Do they think that their products or services are relevant to their needs? And if not, then what can we do to sort of reposition them or give that feedback, back to our partners? Again, I go back to what is the sentiment of the actual sponsor themselves? Are they happy with your event? Are they meeting your goals at your event? And all of that really comes down to this concept of what is the lifetime value of your sponsors? Are they going to return next year? Are they going to re-up next year? And if not, what can you do to sort of give them the data points on booth traffic, on meeting requests, on the quality of the contacts that they were meeting? Again, all of this stuff is accessible through your mobile application as well as other tools and technologies that you have accessible to you. But really, looking at your sponsors from a data-driven perspective to go back to them and say, here's a report on, overall attendee sentiment around your product or service. Here's a report that shows how many people expressed an interest in your brand. Here's a report that says, we saw you scan this many people at your booth and you met this many people. Of course, you could have met this many, and so here's the potential for you to reach next year. Again, I know I just went through a lot of information, so I want to pause before moving forward to talk about technologies to see if we have questions around, sponsor engagement and sponsor metrics.
Yeah, actually, an interesting question. I don't know how much sort of experience you guys have in this realm, but what are some of the things that you would measure to gauge attendee engagement for an online day-long conference where you don't necessarily have in-person interactions with the attendees? It's from Tammy, who's asking.
Like a virtual conference or a webinar.
Sounds like it. Yeah, sounds like that. I feel like this would almost be easier to measure in some respects.
Yeah, I think, there are lots of different webinar tools out there. Of course, you guys are accessing today's presentation via ReadyTalk. At DoubleDutch, we use GoToWebinar. And I think both platforms actually give you a metric on how attentive people were during your particular session. So this is something that I always like to look at when I go back to my team and say, okay, we had this number of people registered, we had this number of people actually attend, and then of the people who attended, how many of them were actually truly engaged in the content? And at what point then did the people who weren't engaged, at what point did they drop off? This is also, and subtle plug for Uberflip, but one of the many reasons why I love Uberflip is because they give me that data. They give that same sort of data point, if you will, that shows you this is the drop-off rate for your content. This is where your content gets kind of sucky, and this is potentially what you can do to sort of elevate that. And we have to look at those things from an event perspective as well. At what point are people leaving the online session or the online webinar? And I could even take that back to the live event component and say, at what point are people dropping off? Are they super engaged in the morning and then they just completely drop off at lunchtime and no one returns to the event? Maybe we need to rethink our content. Maybe we need to rethink the way we laid out the event, laid out the event experience. So there are lots of different things that you should be looking at. I think audience retention and engagement is really, really important to look at, though.
Okay. Yeah, one more question, and then we'll let you kind of keep going through some of the content because I know you've got some really good points coming up. Not sure I fully understand this question, but you might.
Okay.
Adriana wants to know, is there a way of measuring the event via keywords? And I'm not fully certain what she means by this, but she goes on to say, I had this question today and I was unaware of it. For example, an event for online sellers, it needs to be measured in success afterwards. So I don't know if she means you have the event and then you're literally keyword, your search, organic search goes up. I'm not sure if that's what she means. Or something else. So Adriana, if you can clarify, that would be great. Justin, do you have any thoughts here, or are you not quite sure what we're getting at either?
Yeah, I think I would approach it from the same way that you're sort of thinking of it. Can we track keyword volume or increase in keyword volume over time? Again, that goes back to looking at your website metrics and really being able to track that organic volume. Of course, it sounds like the goal of that event might be some kind of PR or brand focused event,
awareness,
where you're launching a new category or you're launching a new service. And so I think being able to demonstrate to your team, okay, before the event took place, keyword volume for keyword X was at this level, and as the event happened, and you can see up to the moment when the keynote said blah 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 brilliant keyword, this is where we see the spike, and this is where we see the elevated search term. So hopefully that is where we're going down the right path for Adriana, but that's how I would approach it.
Okay, cool. And I think that must be right because, actually we got another note from here, Adriana. She was asking about measuring events via keyword, wants to know if it's possible from a buyer's perspective. So I feel like you kind of already answered that.
Yeah.
And I think that, as we sort of go through the rest of this, I think that's going to help kind of give people a good overall view on how to do their event. So we do have a few more questions rolling in, but let's keep the flow going and
keep
we'll
it going
back towards the end. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the perfect segue into the tools and tools for measurement is this quote from Adam Perry, who's the editor-in-chief of Event Industry News. And it goes on actually a little bit beyond this, but what Adam says is that what technology does is like taking Picasso up to modern day and giving him Photoshop. And I think the reason I love this quote is because it's so relevant, to the live engagement world, to the live events world. Where we think of these traditional tools and technologies, and it's been difficult to really measure. But of course, today we have these tools and we have these incredibly powerful technologies that really empower us in a huge, huge way as marketers. And so this is what the DoubleDutch event technology stack looks like, if you will. So of course, we really think it's important for you to equip yourself with the right tools. And that's because today's event technology is empowering marketers to analyze data on the spot using these complex algorithms that ultimately are providing tons and tons of valuable insight into event performance. So this actually gives you, the event organizer, the event marketer, the power to transform the event experience in real time so that you can actually keep your finger on the pulse of the event, so that you can know if my goal is X, Y, and Z, and I'm currently trending at A, B, and C, what do I need to do to get my event up to par, up to snuff with the rest of the organization? And so when we look at our technology stack here at DoubleDutch, of course we're looking at our CRM system, which is Salesforce. We're looking at our marketing automation system, which is Marketo, and then of course we're using our own technology, which is DoubleDutch from the event app perspective. But really, it's all about leveraging these three platforms to speak to one another, to sync together, and give us a clear picture into how the event is going through the life cycle of the event while it's still fresh on the attendee's mind. And so there are tons and tons of reports that are available around events through each of these dashboards, each of these platforms. But a really, really fantastic way to really start thinking about how do each of your platforms and tools and technologies speak to one another beyond just looking at the event registrations and attendance metrics and using something like DoubleDutch to really light up the show floor with data. So again, looking at things like audience sentiment, attendee sentiment, frequency of communication, number of connections that are happening, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to give some sort of final thoughts on how you can really leverage your data wisely, because I think that becomes really important for us to move ourselves from this idea of being an event professional to really thinking of ourselves as a marketer and with the potential of moving into a CMO position. And so, of course, from the perspective of leveraging your data wisely, you have tons of valuable insights in front of you. It's super, super important for us to take advantage of them. So we don't just want to sit back and relax because the event went well and people were super stoked and happy. We really want to take a step back and say, why did this event perform well? And what can we do to replicate that success for future events? Or if there are areas for improvement, how can we apply those changes, again, either in the moment or after the fact, so that we can ensure that we're leveraging this data to its fullest. And this is something that I'm sure we're not the first people to say it, but we believe strongly at DoubleDutch that if you can measure it, you can make it better. And so that's why we're really focused on the data component around events. And that's because they're not just this opportunity to showcase your brand or your product, right? Successful events actually have huge impact on your business. So whether that's increasing revenue, shortening deal cycles, heightening brand sentiment, building buzz on social media, like live events have this incredible power from a marketing standpoint to just do these big things that leverage every aspect of your marketing team. Again, we're talking about your digital marketing team, we're talking about your content marketers, we're talking about your social media team, we're talking about every component of that marketing organization should be involved in and should be working to elevate your event to its maximum potential. And really when we think of that here at DoubleDutch, we again believe very strongly that today's event marketers have an incredibly unique opportunity to become tomorrow's CMO. And so if you see yourself as an event professional today with the end goal in mind of being the director of corporate events, that's fantastic. I'm here to tell you that you can absolutely become a CMO, that you have the tools, you have the skill set to do this. And we believe really, really strongly here at DoubleDutch that you can and should be thinking in that way. And I again go back to Rise of the Event Marketer and this huge content initiative, this huge push that we're doing on our side to really elevate the role of event marketing within the larger marketing organization. I'll make sure that we pass along a copy to the folks at Uberflip to follow up with you so that you all can access this white paper. Again, I only highlighted a few people in my presentation today. We interviewed 6 industry thought leaders, people from Marketing Prof. I talked about Marketo and SnapApp, of course, DoubleDutch. Lots of different ideas and perspectives in this piece. And really with the end goal of helping to train you to think like a marketer, to think like a CMO. I wanted to end really quickly on some facts about DoubleDutch. Of course, we have 17 customers worldwide. We're powering thousands of events each year. And year over year, we're seeing a huge growth in the events that we're powering. And that makes me really excited because that means that every event we're powering, we're getting another event professional to think like a marketer, to use the data, to capitalize on that data. And you see the last point on the bottom right, but we're actually measuring, we're sort of processing over 2 billion user actions, which is an incredible amount of data at our hands to really focus on how can we improve events over time. We're a global organization. I wish we were in Toronto. I could see Hana a lot more often, but I am based here in San Francisco, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So I will hand it back over to you, Hana.
Thank you, Justin. I also wish you were in Toronto. Actually, better yet, I wish I was in San Francisco. The weather is better, so you're gonna have to convince the guys that we need to open up an Uberflip office there.
Fair enough.
So I want to circle back to some of these questions that we've got. And we've got, I saved these towards the end because some of them are kind of broader, questions around how to deal with some more general issues. So John says, Justin talks about the value of face-to-face engagement and accelerating engagement through face-to-face marketing. There are a lot of traditional marketers who see this sales funnel as more important than inbound. How does DoubleDutch counter this entrenched view? So how do you go against people that are still like, events are so old school,
I mean, I don't have the data point, unfortunately, on hand, but and I don't want to misquote it either, but there's an incredible stat, which, again, Hana, I'll share it with you after this so we can pass it along to everyone. But Great. There's actual studies that are done on the power of face-to-face communication and the power of face-to-face meetings. And I think, it's incredibly important, right, because, events are expensive. So actually, let me take a step back. Events are expensive. They're not a cheap form of marketing to produce. There's a lot that goes into producing an event, a successful event, if you will. And I think that's why a lot of people are apprehensive to investing so heavily in event marketing. But when you take a step back and you really look at the event's impact and ability to include everyone from the marketing department. So think of the event experience. It requires content. So you need a keynote. You need to think through, what is the purpose of the event? What are we saying at this event? What's the ultimate message of this event? So your content marketing team is going to be heavily involved in that. Your digital marketing team also needs to be involved because those are the people that are going to get your event out there to the world. Those are the people that are going to take care of the digital ads and the SEO component and optimizing all of those things. Of course, your email team needs to be involved because they need to think of how are we going to nurture someone from a simple registration all the way down to actual attendance and engagement at the event. Your PR team needs to be involved. So I think what I would encourage you to do is to demonstrate that, live events are a traditional form of marketing, if you will, but they incorporate all of these other components of a modern marketing team in a huge way to ultimately accelerate that lead funnel, to accelerate deals, and have an impact on that. So again, you have to tie it back to your business goals and what you're trying to do, but if it's customer retention, customer acquisition, I think there's nothing out there like an event to really take care of that.
Cool. So I have actually a few people asking sort of roughly the same question. So I'm going to take Lauren, Rachel, and Victoria's questions and kind of put them all into one. So, a lot of us think of events in three phases, right? There's the pre-event, during the event, and post-event stuff. So any good general tips for, number one, drawing attention to your booth kind of pre-event and during the event? And then I think all three of them asked also, any good tips for event follow-up?
This is something that we're actually working through really intensely here at DoubleDutch from a marketing perspective, right? So, we've completely transformed the way that we think about exhibiting at events to really focus on that pre-event engagement. So what is a compelling offer? What is a compelling reason why someone should actually come and visit us at our booth? So some things that we're doing first off is really looking to say, okay, we're sponsoring an event in London that happens at this particular time, we'll say late March. So that gives us a 6-week lead time. What can we do that would be the most compelling way to get people to our booth? Okay, great. We have this compelling offer. Let's say that it's London, so we're going to go with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory theme, and we're going to give people a golden ticket, if you will. So let's just roll with this. Then what we do at DoubleDutch is we say, okay, how many leads and prospects do we have in our database that are in the London area, and can we market to there? Of course, if we have history actually exhibiting at that particular event, maybe we've sponsored that same event for the past 3 years, so we have a list of a couple thousand people that we've met at this event over that time. So let's make sure that those people are also included in this campaign and become part of that email nurture program, that email engagement program. So pre-event, we're doing a lot of the database stuff. We're looking at who do we already know that's existing, and who can we get to sort of come to the event or to come see us at the booth. In terms of post-event follow-up, we of course qualify every person that we meet at the booth as cold, warm, or hot, so that of course our sales team has a bit more information. We're taking copious amounts of notes so that we can make sure that we're empowering our sales team to be incredibly efficient in following up with them. So I think that's sort of the first thing in terms of post-event, is just figuring out who are the right people for your sales team to go after right away, and who are the people that you need to nurture. Well, we're also frankly creating segmented nurture tracks and all of these other things. So we're getting quite advanced, and we are creating a piece of content around creating the perfect storm of engagement as an exhibitor. So be on the lookout for that.
I would be super excited to see that, because that's something, it's funny, it's something we're also working through at Uberflip, is what's the best way to engage with people pre-conference? What's the best way to engage with people post-conference? And I know when we have people attending events, we always love to set up meetings beforehand, but then I also know as an attendee, I'm inundated with people wanting to set up meetings with me beforehand, and I'm I don't want to. So it's kind of one of those things that it's hard to find the right sort of balance and the right combination of stuff. So we've got 2 more questions that we're going to take, potentially 3 if we've got the time, but we'll see. So one from Isis and one from Rachel. Let's grab Rachel's first, because I think it's related to what we were just talking about. And she wants to know, what does the sales and marketing relationship look like for events? And I think you talked about that a little bit in terms of sort of the follow-up and kind of marketing passing on relevant stuff to sales. But what about during the event? I mean, is it salespeople that are attending? Is it marketing? Is it both? What's the right mix there?
So I think it goes to, what is the purpose of this particular event. I can speak to, last week DoubleDutch hosted a breakfast event that was all about, late stage prospects and sort of generating, new business opportunities. We had 2 customers speak on a panel, and so it was really important for us to not only have sales reps at this particular event, but we also wanted to make sure that we had account managers at the event so they could create that face-to-face connection with the customers. So what we do when we look at, the events that we're sponsoring is we say, okay, this is the percentage of just like net new people that we expect will be at this event. These are the people that we know currently have a deal in the pipeline. And so our sales team has full exposure into our event sponsorship and event plan and strategy, including like the locations and all of that stuff. So essentially what we say is, hey, sales, we're hosting this event. Maybe we have the attendee list or maybe we don't. Perhaps we just look at the database or, the local database, what have you. But we go back to them and say, like, do any of you have an existing opportunity or a customer in this particular event that would be attending this event? If so, we look at, how many potential leads or prospects do you have? And then we figure out from there who we send to that particular event. Again, looking at other things like, are they sell into this vertical that is the attendee profile, et cetera, et cetera. We try to have a booth captain, which is always a marketing person. And if there are salespeople on the line, I apologize. Salespeople are terrible at, taking care of the quality control of your booth experience.
Yes. I'm sorry. So, I am going to completely agree with that. And we've started doing the same thing is we have a marketing point person at every single event. So like every single time there's one person that's going from marketing who's like, you're the point person. You're responsible for making sure everybody's where they need to be, doing what they need to be doing. Any logistical issues come up because salespeople love you guys. But it's not like if you don't have, babysitter is probably too strong of a word, but if you don't have somebody there, then it can go awry very, very quickly. Wholeheartedly agree on that. So, we predominantly send salespeople, so we call them account executives, but we also send account managers to these events and then, of course, have a marketing presence. And we've got David Sullivan who says, hey, not all salespeople are made the same. So I'm assuming David is a salesperson. You're right, David. We are definitely generalizing, but I think Justin and I have seen a lot of salespeople at a lot of events. But you're right. They're not all the same, and props to you salespeople out there that are doing a great job. Okay, so let's grab one more question because I think we're coming up on the hour, and I know, Justin, you're a busy guy and dealing with a lot of stuff right now. So we don't want to keep it too long. Last question is from Isis, and you had mentioned earlier measuring attendee sentiment. So that's an interesting one. So how exactly do you guys do that? What do you mean by sentiment? How do you measure it?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great question, and Isis, I'd love to connect you with someone who can give you like a complete demo of the platform. I tried to avoid being like too much about DoubleDutch in the presentation. Otherwise, I would have had like screenshots and our event performance dashboards and all of that stuff. So apologies that I didn't get too in-depth with those things, but really the idea behind attendee sentiment leverages something called natural language processing, which I'm not going to say is a perfect science. Like there are definite flaws. It has trouble sensing sarcasm, for example. But essentially what we're doing at DoubleDutch is we're looking at all of the, as attendees are posting in your activity feed, right? So again, this is thinking of the DoubleDutch platform. Would love to sort of show you more about it one-on-one, but people have the ability to post status updates. So your event application with DoubleDutch really becomes a private social network in its own right. So they're posting these status updates, they're liking, they're commenting, they're interacting with one another, they're leveraging channels. So if you think of Slack, we have a similar feature and functionality within our own platform where attendees can create these chat rooms, if you will, where they're going back and forth with each other. And what we're doing on the back end is we're actually measuring the sentiment of all of those things. So are they saying really positive things? Are they saying, things like happy and exciting and love and, this is great? Or are they saying things like, this sucks or I hate this or like that content was terrible? And so we're finding the balance between those things, and we're measuring that sentiment over time. So you can actually see, if a speaker went up on stage and completely bombed and people hated it, like you can see the moment through the attendee sentiment meter, like when that particular thing happened. Again, all of these dashboards update in real time, so you can see, how things are going as they're happening, rather than just looking at things after the fact. So happy to get you in touch with someone who can give you a better demo, but that's a high-level explanation.
That's awesome. That's super interesting stuff. Sounds fancy, Justin, not gonna lie. Awesome. So guys, we're going to wrap up the questions. Keep in mind, we are sending the recording. We are sending the slides. Also throw in some of the resources that Justin mentioned when we follow up with you guys. So never fear, you will have everything you need to become a crazy good event marketer and then eventually turn into CMO, because we learned that that's possible today. Yeah. So, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the webinar today. Really appreciate it. I think you gave a great presentation, lots of really great insights for people.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hannah, and the entire Uberflip team for having me. I think you guys are going to do a demo now, yeah?
Yeah, we are. So stick around, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here with you in just a moment, and I'm going to give you a quick look at what Uberflip can do, whether you are looking to use it for content or content for potentially an event. We definitely do have some of our customers doing that. So before I get into specifically what Uberflip does, I'm going to kind of give you a quick high-level overview. So essentially what we do from a high level is we help you aggregate all of your content into an Uberflip platform. And really, we're talking about any kind of content. So ebooks, white papers, blogs, social media content, video content. And once you've got it in Uberflip, you can actually then start to create really tailored experiences. So I can create a custom experience for a buyer persona. I can create an experience for vertical I'm targeting around a specific topic. And really, you can leverage Uberflip to do this for all kinds of different content experiences across your entire buyer journey. So whether you're updating your resource center, you're creating a content library, using it for sales enablement or account-based marketing, creating really specific streams for that, really you can kind of mix and match your content into anything that you want in order to make sure that it actually is relevant for the person that you're trying to reach. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you how Uberflip uses Uberflip. It's kind of meta. And then we might actually pop over to DoubleDutch, since we had those guys on today, and we might give Justin's hub a little sneak peek there as well, Justin. So when we're looking at our hub, you can see this is our own Uberflip hub powered by Uberflip. We call it a hub. You might call it a resource center. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but it's a matter of how you organize it and how you make your content discoverable. And as I scroll down, you can see I've got all of my different types of content here. And this is just sort of the latest feed of my content. I've got ebooks, I've got presentations I'm pulling in from SlideShare, I've got articles, and not only do you see content as we traditionally think about it, but we have also got social media content here. So, here's an Instagram of a couple of the guys that are at the booth at the conference that we're currently at Scottsdale. And you're also going to see, again, video content, social media content, ebooks, all sorts of different types to really create that rich content experience. Now, the other thing that you're going to see is these calls to action. Now, these calls to action are kind of one of the magic bullets of Uberflip, and you can take these calls to action and you can sprinkle them out throughout your content as you're sort of seeing here. And when you actually click on it, you can fill out this little form. And usually for a marketer to create this kind of nested form, it usually takes a few weeks for a developer to get around to it. With Uberflip, you can actually create this CTA in a matter of minutes. So the great part is, you fill out the form. All of this is integrated with your marketing automation tools. So, whether you're using Marketo or Eloqua or HubSpot, Pardot, what have you, all of the data goes directly there. So nice little The other thing you can do is you can really place these calls to action anywhere you want. So you can sprinkle it throughout your content, but you can also put it right next to a specific item of content. So in this case, we've actually placed the CTA right next to this blog post. Now, the CTAs are one thing, and I'm actually going to show you another really good use case for them. I'm going to actually show you what that CTA looks like in what we call a custom stream of content. So as I mentioned before, you can create different content experiences. And one thing that we've done is we've actually created a specific content experience for an audience segment. And for us, we integrate with marketing automation. We talk a lot about marketing automation. So we actually created a specific stream of content for the segment of our audience that uses Marketo. And in that stream, you'll see that this content is way more relevant to those Marketo users. As you scroll down, it talks about marketing automation. It talks about how to fuel marketing automation with content. It talks about Marketo and Uberflip. Now, not only is the content much more tailored, now the call to action is much more tailored. So instead of a general call to action that says, hey, try Uberflip, now I can actually say, hey, take a look at Uberflip and Marketo together. And it's actually much more targeted. And we all know as marketers, the more targeted your call to action, the better your conversion rates in general. So being able to create these custom streams, whether you choose to do it manually, which you can do, or whether you want to automate it through something we call smart filters, this is a really powerful tool for marketers. And you can see how you can get super custom with these streams. And you can even get so custom so that you can create them for specific prospects for your sales team. So lots of things you can do there. Last feature I'm going to show you on this front end actually is going to be around those calls to action. So, we've seen them sprinkled throughout the content. We've seen them beside something like a blog post. Another really compelling way you can use these CTAs is to actually gate content. Now, of course, I picked the one piece of gated content or the one piece of content that isn't gated, but let me pick another one here. Let's try this one. Perfect. So with this piece of content, you can see that normally this recording, this on-demand webinar would actually live behind a landing page. That's usually how we gate content as marketers. But right now, what I've done is I've taken it and I've gated it with what we call an overlay CTA. Now, the great part about this is that you've kind of got a teaser in the background. All you have to do is fill out this little form. You don't have to fill out that big, long landing page, and you're in right away. And we've actually had customers test this, and they've seen up to a 250% increase in conversion using this call to action overlay compared to a traditional landing page. So lots of sort of optimization you can do there. And again, landing pages are great in some contexts, but in other contexts, just having that form overlay might work really, really well for you. So that's our Uberflip Hub. And just to give you guys a sneak peek, you can really play around with how you implement the hub. You can play around, oops, wrong website there. You can play around with how you actually execute on your hub. You can play around with the look, the feel, the theme of your hub. So just to show you another example, and I'll show you DoubleDutch because we just had them on the webinar. They did a great job for us. So I'm going to show you their resources center. And they've actually created a resource center for all of their content. I apologize, guys. My Wi-Fi is not very good. I'm relying on conference Wi-Fi right now. But as you can see, DoubleDutch actually has done a great job around including calls to action in their content. As you scroll down their content hub, you can actually see they've got a ton of different types of content, including videos, including blog articles. And as you start to scroll down, you can actually start to get some of that content that you're really craving. Now, the other thing that DoubleDutch has done that I absolutely love is that they've done a good job of organizing their content with Uberflip. So you'll see here that you've got browse by topic. And then you've also got browse by type. Now, the problem with most resource centers is that most marketers will just put browse by type. So they'll put a menu that says, here are all our white papers. Here are all our ebooks. Here are all our videos. The problem is when I go to a resource center, I never say, hey, I really want to read a white paper. I don't care what it's about. It's just got to be a white paper. Nobody ever says that. What they want is they want to learn about different topics that are related to them. So having both the ability to filter by topic and by type is really important and really a better way to organize your content. And then just a quick look, guys, at the Uberflip dashboard on the back end. Not only are we really concerned with how to create a really great experience for your audience, but we want to make sure that you as marketers have a really great experience. So as you can see from the Uberflip back end, it's really easy to use. You can manage content really quickly and effectively. Here are all my different experiences in my streams. You can create those calls to action really quickly simply by clicking on the call to action and customizing the message and the color as you see fit, and making sure that it's integrated with your marketing automation tool. And that's as simple as entering in an API key in most cases. You can customize the appearance of your hub. You can also customize the header, the footer, and if you want to get really fancy with your hub, you can also even include some CSS. We've got some hubs that really don't look anything like the out-of-the-box version with the tiles. And here it was, guys, a little slow to load, but here's how you actually create those calls to action. So hopefully that gave you guys a good overview of Uberflip. If you do have any questions about it, head over to uberflip.com. You can request a free trial there, so we'll hook you up with a content specialist. They'll send you a secret link to a free trial so you can play around with Uberflip, or you can email us directly at contact@uberflip.com. In the meantime, guys, keep an eye out for your inbox. We'll send all of the recording and the slides, and also keep an eye out for our new podcast, which will be launching in the next week or so. So for more details on that, head over to uberflip.com/podcast. And again, we actually have a great podcast coming up on event marketing. So if you like this, you're going to love that one. Thanks for attending today's webinar, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.